Hi, it's Mandy with Worshipful Living, and today I'm excited to be back into the book of Genesis with you as we continue our study through blogging through the Bible. And we are in the book of Genesis this month, and I really thought a lot about where I was going to put us this week. We had 7 chapters, and so that was, there was a lot of stuff. We got Noah in the ark, and Enoch and how he walked with God, creation. There's a lot of easy and good topics that we can talk about. But what was really stuck out to me this week was that in Sunday school on Sunday, our Sunday school teacher taught on Genesis chapter 3, and then that happened to be where we were this week. And so I thought I would just, instead of just sharing a bunch of things that I found, I thought I would share with you some of the things that he found. And I put some of them in the blog post above. But the part that I wanted to share with you on the video was about how Adam and Eve really ruptured their relationship with God. In the garden, they had full access to God. They walked with him in the cool of the day. They talked with him. Everything we crave about our relationship with God, answers, personal contact, all of that. They had what we desire. And when it comes to our relationship with God. And what's interesting is that it was because of their choice that they separated themselves. Now, they didn't really realize that that was going to be what would happen. God did tell them that if they ate of the tree, that was going to cause death. And they didn't realize it was going to be spiritual death and separation from him in that way. But that's what it did. But what's even more interesting to me is that, they had access to God at all times. I mean, we have that access now, but it's different. If I call Christ's name, he's not going to just show up in the room. And if he does, that's something that's never happened before. But I know he hears my prayers. But when Adam and Eve could have called out to God, he would have been there just like that because there was no sin. So he could be in their presence and they could be in his. And so when we find Satan, who used the serpent to trick and deceive Adam and Eve, we find that they didn't call out to God. When Satan started distorting God's word and taking it and twisting it, they didn't call out to God and say, God, what's he talking about here? What do you say? They could have asked that. They could have called on God's name at any moment, and God would have been there because that's the kind of God we serve. But they didn't. They chose to handle it on their own. And isn't that where we are in life so often? Instead of calling out to God, we try to handle it ourselves. Instead of, asking God for his help, we say we've got it. And only in the moments where it gets beyond our control do we turn back to him and say, Lord, I need your help. Help me, I'm drowning. I think of Peter, and when he gets so bold, and he sees Jesus walking on the water, and he says, I want to come to you, Lord. And Jesus says, well, come on, buddy. And Peter takes that step and he starts walking. But when he took his eyes off of Christ, that's when he started to drown. And the same is true of what happened in the garden. When they took their eyes off of God, when they took their eyes off of what really mattered the most, and they put their eyes on themselves and put their eyes on what they thought was being withheld from them, that is when they began to drown, and that is when sin took place. Temptation always comes when we take our eyes off of Christ. Always. Let me say that again. Temptation will always come when we take our eyes off of Christ. And in those moments when our eyes are not where they're supposed to be, when we're looking at ourselves, when we're looking at what's good for our eyes, what's good for our flesh, what's good for our lust, when we are doing that, that's when we fall into sin. That is when it comes out in our lives. Sin always starts in our mind. It never starts with, I shouldn't touch that and I'm going to pick it right up. No, sin always starts with, I'm not supposed to touch that. Wonder why I shouldn't touch that. What will happen if I touch that? And we think about it and we ponder on it and we let it stay within our brains and it goes to our hearts and it comes out in our actions. So that is how sin can be so dangerous. And Satan never Satan doesn't have to look for things to tempt us with. We put it out there. So many people are like, oh, well, I just feel like Satan's really out to get me. you know what? We take our eyes off of Christ, and we are the ones that are often making the choices to fall. We don't need, unfortunately, in our sinful flesh, we don't need anybody but us. So where are your eyes? Are they on Christ? Are they in worship? Are your eyes focused on Him, to worshiping Him, or are you worshiping yourself? Really, I think that's kind of what it comes down to. So today, I would just encourage you to keep your eyes focused on the King and not on the things of this world. Worship God with your life.